Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. NOTCAST, yet another episode, 377. And today, more viewers' questions. Thanks for asking. I will endeavour to answer. We have loads to go through. I'm going to try and give you short and sweet answers on things. Some of them actually will become fuller episodes in future. I know you can hardly wait, right? So today is Monday the 15th of April. 2024, and on Friday, Manic Street Preachers issued their 20th anniversary edition of their possibly most unloved record, Lifeblood. And here is the 3 CD version of it, and the website signed red vinyl version of the record. A question from Boyd37773 is, are you going to review Lifeblood? Well, the answer to that is yes, but not in this episode. I have a much earlier one where I do talk about Lifeblood in a lot more detail before the reissue was announced. But yes, I'll be reviewing Lifeblood, and I'll also be doing a ranking of Manic's albums at some point in the future. So hold on to your horses, because that one's going to get hairy. Daisy Griffiths would like to know, am I going to the Manic Street Preachers and Suede when they tour in the summer? Yes, I am, and I'm going to more than one show. And then the next question is, what was the first CD that you owned? Well, I still have it, which is really good news. This album, possibly the progenitor and prime thought for many CD players. When people think of, well, Bono was asked, what do you think of when you think of Q magazine? And he said, a nice shiny CD. And when people think about CDs themselves, they often think about Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits. Don't like Dire Straits. I do like another band starting with D, and this is the first CD I ever owned, Violator by Depeche Mode. I had my first CD player on Christmas Day, December 25th, 1990. Before then, I was vinyl till I die. And I don't remember the first album where I only bought it on CD and I didn't buy it on vinyl, probably not long after, because vinyl was old-fashioned. It was the poor man's 8-track tape, wasn't it? Oh no, that was CD, according to Big Black, or Shellac. And Violator on CD had a different extended mix of Personal Jesus. So I had to have it. Depeche Mode were one of my favourite bands. And this was one of the first times that we went into the phase of extended CDs with bonus tracks. These days, the vinyl editions have bonus tracks. In fact, everything's got bonus tracks. So, there you are. Violator was my first CD, I think. And I think I even bought it before the CD player arrived. I bought it thinking, hoping I was going to get a CD player for Christmas. The blind optimism of youth and a full head of hair. But as, Bill Bryson said, age and guile will always be innocence, youth and a bad haircut. So there you are. And here I am, aged with a bad no haircut and full of guile. So there you go. But no, that was my first CD I ever owned. I think I may have had a couple of CD singles I picked up cheaply beforehand. This is the first one that I definitely remember buying and thinking, yeah, CDs are the future. Jessica Ronson, thanks for your question, what are your thoughts on The Cure not releasing an LP and Robert Smith promising new stuff? Well, that's good. That's a really good one. I've kind of touched upon it in the previous episode or about The Cure, which I did about 18 months ago now, right hot on the heels of the 2022 Songs from a Lost World tour. I think there's two reasons behind it. The first one is The Cure are still pretty obviously writing and recording new stuff. They've played, I think, 6 songs live on the most recent tour, which haven't yet been released. They've played 2 extra songs, which are on this release here, From Here to There, an Anniversary, being Step In to the Light and It Can Never Be the Same, both of which are doom and gloom. And I think there's 2 reasons why they haven't released an LP. The first one is what's called the victory delusion or victory defense. The idea that what you're doing creatively has to stand up to what you've done previously. And if it's not as good as your best album ever, why bother? And then there's, paralysis analysis and creative, not a creative block, but not even creative constipation, but more like a fear of what you're doing being judged against what you have done and the idea that what you did in the past was better than what you're doing now, and nobody's ego likes to hear that. Or as I like to call it, the Chinese democracy effect. The second part of that is, if the album that everyone's been waiting 16 years for you to release isn't as good as the albums that you released 20 years ago or 30 years ago, everyone's going to go, they're crap, they're putting out rubbish. Well, that never really bothers Depeche Mode. And that's not a criticism of Depeche Mode's latest albums, because some of them are really, really good. I don't like bands that stop and then just, don't carry on or don't release stuff or just become a touring museum to how good they were in the past. For me, at least, creativity is not a tap that you get switched off. It's a tap that you compare to what you've done previously, sure. But you don't suddenly go, I'm dry and not going to write any more songs, unless you're Henry Rollins, who literally one day thought, I haven't written a song for a year. That's it. It's over. It's done. And in terms of creativity, I've had positions where I know my creativity has dried up in certain avenues. So I used to write like novels, and I've written 7 of them. Well, actually 7.5. And halfway through the 7.5, or the one that was going to be the 8th one, I kind of realised I didn't have it. It had gone. I thought I'd got so far, and then suddenly it had dried up, and I'd never written a creative piece of narrative work since. It's always been, song lyrics, reviews, journalism, factual stuff, my autobiography, which I've written, and I know, Graham, you want to read it? No, you aren't. All that type of stuff. Whereas I think, for Robert Smith, sometimes there's the point of going, well, if it's not as good as anything I've done previously, and I don't have a compelling financial reason to release it, and I'm still going to be able to sell out arenas, and I can still enjoy playing live, and I don't have to play the game of having to appear on TV shows or do in-stores, and I don't have to deal with record companies, I don't have to deal with chart placings, I don't have to deal with radio interviews, but I can operate independently and outside of the big machine. Then, ideally, the one point of view is going, well, what's in it for them to release new material? Especially considering recorded music sells very, very small numbers these days. It only really exists to promote the tour. The way that the music industry has changed completely and utterly is that live music is where it's at, it's where the money is, it's where the profit sits. So releasing music is not necessarily actually beneficial to an artist, and it could damage an artist's reputation more than anything else they actually do. So I understand why he doesn't want to do it. There's a huge amount of hassle for not very much rewards, and those songs still exist. They're still on hard drives, they're still finished, they're still mixed. He doesn't have to get into any dodgy contractual relationships with anybody. He can just tour, and they can tour, and apparently they've got somewhere in the region of 28 to 30 songs, which they've played maybe 8 live, and they sell loads of tickets, and they have a great reputation. And realistically, apart from the people that go to see The Cure, is anybody really madly itching for new Cure material? Well, I am, but I'm weird. And actually, most Cure fans are weird, if you put it that way. So maybe the answer is no, there won't be another one. Or maybe it'll come out when they're split, or they're dead, or something. I don't know. But The Cure have a history of promising things that they don't deliver. The Latin America 2013 film by Tim Pope, the 40th anniversary documentary, the BBC Sessions and Concerts radio box set, the reissues that still haven't happened of Wild Mood Swings, Blood Flowers, which were promised over 20 years ago. In fact, there's a whole page on Slicing Up Eyeballs, which is a list of all the projects which Robert Smith has promised us that haven't come to pass. The Reflections DVD, for example, the 414 Scream album. Again, they don't happen, and I chalk it down to experience, and we carry on and we go for the next thing. And when The Cure release something, I buy it, and if they don't, I don't, and I buy something else. And that's how it works. And as I said before, the music industry has changed completely and utterly from 30 years ago. Physical media is a niche product. It's another piece of merchandising alongside bucket hats and V-neck t-shirts. Oops. And Mel Hayes, who has commented quite a lot actually on various things, thanks for that. I genuinely mean it. I really like it when there's comments, because I don't know who watches these, and I don't know who you are. I don't know what your opinions are. Occasionally, somebody I've never met before will come up to me at a gig and go, "Oh, I really like that video that you did," and I'm like, "I have no idea who you are, but thanks." And mine's a Diet Coke. So, by the way, if you do see me out and about, I'd like a fizzy orange or a full fat Coke, depending upon the time of the evening. So the question from Mel Hayes is, do you think that singers should stick to what they want to do, or as labels tell them? Do labels have too much say? And what's my opinion on labels? Well, firstly, and I've mentioned this before, the vast majority of labels are populated by idiotic Nepo babies under a certain age. And that sounds very, very harsh. But realistically, to get into the industry these days, you have to have money behind you and you have to be independently wealthy. And that's got its hand tight around the throat of creativity. Lots of people are creative. Their creative abilities do not rest upon what the size of their bank account. It only means that if you have an enormous amount of money, you can throw the dart 100 times, and if you hit once, you're successful. If you haven't got loads of money, you throw the dart once at most. If you miss, that's it. You've lost your turn for the rest of your life, and you either kind of, toil in obscurity, or you have a day job and you work around that. And bands that you've heard of that play pretty big shows have day jobs because there's not enough money in the industry. And a lot of it has been siphoned off by idiots and wankers, especially that talentless parasite that runs Spotify, who realistically pay the artists more money because without them, you are nothing. And you're nothing anyway, right? You're just a middleman that inserted yourself into the middle of it, like one of those weird parasites that eats the bodies or brains of bees and populates them and makes them become like, zombie locusts or whatever, which is exactly what you are. So my opinion of labels, super, super low, actually. And as John Lydon said way back when, as he said, record labels are there to sell records, not to dictate terms. They don't have, most record labels don't have creativity, they don't have artistry, they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand what people like. They sit there and, they rejected the Beatles, they rejected the Rolling Stones, they've rejected many, many artists who have gone on to change the world because they think we can't sell it. They rejected U2. Everyone who's been big has had a record company rejection or been dropped, even to the point where in 2001, Virgin went to David Bowie and went, "No, we're not releasing your album because we're morons." And I still stand by that statement, they are. And, you then get to the point where, as with Neil Young and the Trans album, or with Talk Talk and Spirit of Eden and Laughing Stock, both of which, by the way, are fantastic ambient jazz masterpieces of moody melody, is that I think Talk Talk was sued by their label for releasing unrepresentative product, and it went to court, to which point their response was, very quickly, how can we be unrepresentative of ourselves? All it really means is we're not doing what you want us to do. And by the way, you're the record company. Your job is to sell records, not to tell us who we are and what we sound like, which I think is a very fair statement to make. So record labels really should allow all their artists complete creative control, unless you're Lou Reed and you want to release Metal Machine music, at which point someone should clearly go, you're doing it to burn through a contract and you can't get away with it. Otherwise, if it's a genuine artistic statement and they believe in it, a record label should not be allowed to interject into an artist, and an artist should be able to release whatever they want. Okay, whatever they want. And we have the ability now to listen to it on Spotify or wherever to decide whether it's what we want to buy. But by the record label deciding, no, it's not going to work. Recording has never been cheaper. High quality recording to a releasable standard has never been cheaper or more affordable or more accessible. And recorded product doesn't sell a huge amount anyway, and it costs little to put something onto Spotify and get it right. So a record label should not dictate in any way, shape or form to anybody what a record should sound like. Maybe if you want to put a picture of a dog raping a woman on the cover of a picture disc for a song called Animal Fuck Like a Beast, sure, someone somewhere should interject and go, grow up guys, this is stupid and you're stupid. But they shouldn't have any control whatsoever. Absolutely none. At all. In any way, shape or form. And these days it's not really record labels that have control anyway. It's more people like, for example, Live Nation or whatever it's called, Madonna's management company, Maverick, that have got too much control because they're locked in artists to 360 deals. They know it's not records these days, it's merchandising, it's touring, it's streaming revenues. And this is where Taylor Swift, who I know some of you don't like, is a very, very clever, canny and fantastic businesswoman. By taking control of the narrative, taking control of their material, re-recording the material they don't have the rights to, selling the rights individually and negotiating it directly to people like, I think, was it Disney Plus, for example, or the cinemas, and making stipulations about experiences. Suddenly it puts the money in the hands of the people that are the creative partners in this, as opposed to businessmen, wankers in snoots, snorting it up their noses, standing next to people in bands who don't know what these bands look like and saying, I don't know what the deal is with those guys, they're fucking rubbish, whilst walking up to another person in the band and go, you guys are going to be huge, because they have absolute contempt for you, me and everybody else. It's just another business to them, which is insulting. Music saved my life, changed my life, made my life better. And the idea that somebody that gets to work in it has as much passion for this as they do for baked beans makes it really, really insulting, actually, because music really bloody matters to lots of people, including me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done nearly 400 episodes of me talking to my phone on my own in a back room, surrounded by the wall of CDs that inevitably will tip over and kill me at some point in the future. Hopefully, not tonight. I've got a lot of living left to do, and I'll sleep when I'm dead, as Bon Jovi has it. So, the next question is from Zaragoza Kid. How many CDs and vinyls do you own, and how do you store them? That's a brilliant question. I can't answer it today because I can't show you how I store them, because there's a bunch of crap that's in the way. As you can probably tell, that's how I store my CDs. My vinyl is elsewhere in the house, and I will show you at some point soon in the future. Sodium Lights wants to know about juxtapositions in sequencing and what my opinions are on that, and what my opinions are, if any, on Primal Scream. Great question. I'm going to answer the last part first because I can. Yeah, I liked Primal Scream. I have drifted away from the band over the past 20 years for reasons that I think I'll put into a full episode. Certainly everything I've heard about the way that they conduct their business as a band compared to the people that are in the band, and the situation around Duffy's death were, I think, disgraceful and disrespectful, but that's a separate conversation. As a band, I think Primal Scream have become boringly retrospective and nostalgic. I really liked them between about 1997 and about 2002. They seemed really futuristic. They seemed really interested and engaged and alive. And since then, it's been a law of diminishing returns, whilst they package up old reheated Led Zeppelin riffs and call it songs like Country Girl. I'm not a huge fan of them. I saw them last year. It was completely free. They were literally giving tickets away. And now they're supporting, I think, Alice Cooper somewhere in an arena, which, is going to affect your commercial prospects, really, isn't it? So Primal Scream, I'm going to do an episode about their discography in full later on. And my thoughts about sequencing, juxtapositions. Sometimes juxtapositions are really, really important and you absolutely have to get them right. But other times I think gentle transitions between tracks are absolutely important to maintain the mood and to have the sequence run gently. But then occasionally, and I was listening to Pet Shop Boys' Please album yesterday, and I have lots of thoughts about Pet Shop Boys sequencing. But the way that it runs from Violence into Later Tonight to Why Don't We Live Together is, I think, a really great example of sequencing that's done well, that also has a juxtaposition. So Violence, the lyric is about violence in a modern society, often late at night. There's then followed up by a track called Later Tonight, which is a gentle 2-minute piano ballad. And that's about obviously meeting someone later tonight and possibly hoping that things will go a certain way and a relationship would be consummated and it would be successful. So there's a lyrical pattern that runs in there, even if there isn't a musical pattern. And then the last song on the album, Why Don't We Live Together, is the song that kind of, in the gap between the end of Later Tonight and the start of Why Don't We Live Together, kind of indicates that there has been a change and the relationship has moved into another phase. It's gone beyond initial kind of intimacy to something where it's like, why don't we live together? Why don't we move in? Why don't we take the next step? Baby, you and me, if we dare, we could share and we could be together. And I'm like, I really like that in terms of sequencing. So I think you should need to have, on a good album, you need to have a thematic line that runs through the songs before and after each other. Either it's a lyrical one, or it's a musical one, or it's a mood. So for example, The Mission, Into the Blue, the harsh ending of that, the drum beats, the da-da-da-da, and then starting them with Butterfly on a Wheel, which again starts with drums, and it feels like those two songs have to be together. They absolutely do, and there's no two ways about it. Or you could put Into the Blue and Hands Across the Ocean together, both start and end with drums in their respective orders. So you can look at that and go, yep, that completely works. So Lauren Toy, next question. Thank you for this. I really like it. Do you know any artist that doesn't use dynamic pricing, and does it benefit the artist? Will it backfire? Well, I can think of some that don't have dynamic pricing, and I really appreciate that. Abusive high gig pricing is another matter, which of course I did a previous episode about the great gig scandal about 70 episodes ago. Dynamic pricing is bullshit. And if companies want to charge dynamic pricing, we the workers should be able to introduce dynamic salaries. So if we don't feel like it, we should be able to charge more, because it's not going to go in their favour. But they don't like that at all. They want to raise the prices without raising the salaries, or without raising the payments that they make to us, as if somehow money was an infinite resource that we, as consumers in the capitalist death system, have. Oh, hang on, wrong meeting. But when we get to that point, okay, I saw that there was dynamic pricing in Depeche Mode. It was like $2,000 to be right up the front at some of the early shows on the tour. I paid £80 at most to be in the standing section of the 3 shows which I saw. And of the 3 shows which I saw in the standing section, I felt that I didn't get anywhere near £2,000 worth of entertainment. You know, I got maybe £90 worth of entertainment. I got 20 songs. That's still £4 a song. But I had a great night out with loads of my friends, and we had a lovely dance, and we sang along to songs that we like. And that was the thing that was matter. Because to me, seeing the band perform is actually not that big a deal. Being there with my friends who have the same kind of feelings as me about music that really matters to me. We have a communal experience together. We have shared memories that I look back at and go, yeah, I was surrounded by my people in my tribe. But I look at it and I go, if I spent £2,000 on a gig ticket, I wouldn't be able to buy anything else that month. I wouldn't be able to pay for my mortgage or my rent. I wouldn't be able to buy food. I wouldn't be able to, you know, buy washing up liquid or a record or repair anything if it broke down. Some people don't have £2,000, okay? Dynamic pricing is abusive market exploitation, normally by artists that are already staggeringly rich. And I bring this example up because tickets for the Pet Shop Boys at Coco went on sale today at £55, sold out in a minute. Tickets for the Pet Shop Boys at the Royal Opera House went on average between £166 and £250. Doing that gig at £55 to 1,500 people and being able to include a CD in that tells you that realistically it cost the band, at a break-even point, about £45,000 a day to run that show-ish. If you were U2 and you were in stadiums, it costs you about £1 million a day, maybe £1.5 million every day you're on the road. So even at that point, and you go, well, if you sell 10,000 tickets at £100, you've covered your costs. But then they're playing 20,000 seaters, and they're playing an average ticket price of around $300. And you go, well, the profit ratio on that is enormous. So dynamic pricing is bullshit. It's going to bite back on everybody. Now you can argue, but if the tickets don't sell, we lower the price of the tickets. Well, so maybe tickets are too bloody expensive. That's why you have to lower the prices of the tickets in order to sell them. People aren't made of money. We're in the middle of a recession. Certainly in the UK, hyperinflation has ruined everything. People have less disposable income, and entertainment is always the thing that's going to sit at the last of the choices. Because if you ask somebody, well, do you want to see a band or do you want to eat? Like, I'm going to eat. Yeah, it's like, do you want to see a band or do you want to pay your rent? Well, I'm going to have to pay my rent, aren't I? The entertainment is the stuff that sits around the edges of that. what they also don't realise is like a snake eating its own tail. Is if you put dynamic pricing in for everything, you might get the same amount of money in people spend on gigs overall, but you'll have less gigs, you'll have less bands, you'll have less people employed, you'll have less rising bands, you'll have less small venues. You're cutting off a future for immediate short-term profit, like some kind of cannibal. And the Cure don't have dynamic pricing. I think for 3 shows in America, contractually they had to do it. But for the rest of them, they insisted on, the cheapest admission was $20. And then the fees for that were more than actually the cost of the ticket, which is fucking absurd. Full stop. And that was still, one of the highest grossing tours of 2023. So anybody can provide affordable gig tickets, sell more tickets to more people, please the people, deliver art to the masses, make sure that art is easily accessible to everybody, no matter the size of their pocketbook, and you can still make a fuck ton of cash. Okay, and it's when bands say, yeah, we should charge, £500 for a ticket, and it's like, why? What are you doing that's providing £500? Because remember, if you're taking a mum and a dad and the 2 children to go and see Taylor Swift, that's £2,000. And that's £2,000 for a night's entertainment. That's not good enough. Even though the Taylor Swift show, by the way, I've seen it on Disney Plus, really, really good, really impressive. Not really my thing, really impressive. But you kind of go, you're just cannibalising and reducing the size of the industry for everybody else that works in it. You're choking the people that are creative, the stars of the future, and you're going to piss off the people that are going to realise, I couldn't afford to go to that show. I won't see it next time because I survived. I was okay. What else was I doing that night? Loads of people were putting it up on TikTok, whatever the fuck that is. And I'm like sat there going, well, that looks good, but I'll watch it when it comes to streaming or when it comes to YouTube. And then you have the thing where, like, as Gemma Cornell said, Coachella 2016, comfy chairs, free snacks, cats, and it doesn't cost you anything. And that's like really tempting. And obviously I'm one of the people that thinks that outside is very peoply and it's a bit outsidey. I don't like people. I don't like leaving the house. I don't like talking to anybody. I'd quite happily be, Wonko the Sane in my little room and never talk to anybody ever again, I think. For example, if I had a country, the name of, my country's national anthem would be Nick Cove's People Ain't No Good, which I know I've said before, but it's been true since the song came out in 1997. So realistically, this year I've made a conscious decision to go to less shows in smaller venues and to pay less money. And one of those reasons is because everything else is getting really expensive. And one of those reasons is I'm fucking fed up of being ripped off by bands playing arenas that think that they can charge me £100 to stand at the back of the room. Because frankly, if I've got £100, I might spend it on something else, thank you. And if I'm going to spend the kind of money that would get me a holiday, I might actually go for a holiday and go to somewhere I haven't seen before, as opposed to a huge tin shed on the outskirts of London to see a band play for 2 hours, surrounded by drunks. Dynamic pricing is killing the industry, and that's pretty much my opinion about it. And people that do it are normally incredibly rich and therefore scumbags. They don't need the money, they're just greedy. And as Julian Cope said, one of the worst things you can call somebody is to call them a greedhead. So there you are. So The Cure, one of my favourite bands, don't do dynamic pricing. And that's because they're better than the bands that do dynamic pricing. And if you're in a band that does dynamic pricing and you're watching this and you're incredibly rich and you think, I won't get out of bed for less than £500,000, fuck you. You don't deserve to do this for a living. And you never did. Wow. That's put me in a bad mood. So let's go for some good things. So my worst cinema experience by Sean Whelan. Hi, Sean. Hope I pronounced your name correctly. Worst cinema experience and first cinema experience. Worst cinema experience. There's 2 parts to that. One is the experience you had at the cinema with the people that were around you. And I've been generally very lucky, although I know my brother hasn't been. And the other one is the worst film I've seen in the cinema. So I've walked out of 3 films in my life. The first one was Battlefield Earth in the year 2000. The second one was Hancock, which I got wrong. I should have stayed. And the third one was Aquaman at Christmas, because I'd been to see, I can't even remember what film was on before it. And then Aquaman started 10 minutes later. So I'm like, well, I'll go and see Aquaman, and if it's rubbish, I'll leave. And after about half an hour, I'm like, it's just a bunch of CGI fish punching another bunch of CGI mermen. I'm like, oh, it's going to be crap, isn't it? So I went. The worst film I've seen in the cinema is Battlefield Earth, John Travolta's appalling science fiction epic based upon the drug-inspired ramblings of L. Ron Hubbard, the creator of Scientology, in which a bunch of cavemen managed to get into 10,000-year-old Harrier jump jets, take them off and fight aliens. And it was about the point where the cavemen got into the Harrier jump jets, and John Travolta called them man-animals, and the jump jets managed to fire up with a full tank of fuel, even though they spent 10,000 years sitting in a cave. And I was like, this is fucking awful, isn't it? And at that point, I was living in Birmingham. I was in the cinema, which was, I think it's in Brindley Place, but I could be wrong now. Just round the back near where the steering wheel was, the hardcore techno club, and round by where Queensway is. There's a cinema there that's now closed near the gay quarter. And I was sat there and I looked at my watch and went, oh, if I leave now, I can get the train. And the next train's 40 minutes. So if I don't leave right now, I'm going to spend 40 minutes sat on the platform, wishing I'd left 40 minutes ago. I looked up, and there's a caveman flying a Harrier jump jet, fighting aliens. I was like, oh, fuck this, I'm just going to go home and have lasagna, which was the right decision to make, and still is. I think I saw Battlefield Earth once on television after that, and I'm like, I cannot believe anybody made this rubbish. If it's not on How Did This Get Made, it should be. It probably is. But it's not the worst film I've ever seen, but it's one of the worst films I've ever seen. And I can't believe I paid to see it. And I'd like to apologise to Graham and Giles for enabling your terrible, terrible visit to that dogshit movie. First cinema experience. Well, I don't quite know. The first cinema experience I remember is the original 1977 release of Star Wars, which, as we know, is quite good. And it's a seminal science fiction classic. This is the 1977 novelisation written by Alan Dean Foster, although credited to George Lucas for contractual reasons and money, of course. Alan Dean Foster changed my view of the world. He wrote 37 movie novelisations out of about 140 in total. This is probably the one for which sold the most, for which he is least well known. There is no way George Lucas wrote this. Alan Dean Foster wrote it, and as you probably know, Star Wars is quite a good film. And if you don't know it, okay, I think you should watch it though. I think it's quite good. So that is viewers' questions. I will pick up the Primal Scream issue later on, I think is the fair thing to say. I will pick up some of the other issues, the one about the Mannix Lifeblood, in due course. And I will thank you all for your questions. If you have any more, please do ask. I really enjoy them, actually. I really like them. It keeps things nice and fresh and exciting. And it also means I don't have to do any homework. Because as I've said before, when I do one about an album, I'm sat there and I'm kind of going, I need to know about every B-side, including the one that's on the Indonesian 7-inch. Whereas these ones, I can just pick up a bunch of stuff and bullshit. So, thanks viewers, thanks questions. If you've got any more, put them in the section underneath. If you haven't, that's fine too, because there's always a question that needs to be answered. What time is love? And the answer to that is 3 AM eternal. Okay, if you like to subscribe. If you don't subscribe. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments. And in the meantime, stay beautiful, and I will see you all soon. Okay, adios, amigos. Bye. Right, now I've got to go and switch it off. So, yeah. Oh, hang on, let me find the button. Right, this is exciting, isn't it? No, it isn't.